since sharing my What I Eat in a Day review on Stephanie Buttermore's all-in diet, I've received tons of requests for an update. Now, I actually don't watch a lot of YouTube myself unless it's for research and for work, but I have been religiously following Stephanie's journey because A, I think it's amazing what she's doing, and I believe she is a huge asset to the online fitness community. And B, I just love her personality. I think she's fun and obviously super smart, and her and I also share a deep love of all things donuts. So for this video, I'm gonna be sharing some of my insights into Stephanie's all-in journey and let you know what I am really loving about this transformation that I've seen. Also a heads up that I'm wearing my caffeinated and motivated shirt from my new merch line, so definitely hit up the description for a link on where to get it. Now, before we get started, a reminder that this information is for education and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or prescribe, and that you should always speak to your healthcare provider about your unique health needs. Now, before we get to chat with Stephanie Buttermore herself, let's do a little bit of a recap if you're just kind of checking in. About 9 months ago, Stephanie, who's a really huge fitness YouTuber and influencer, announced that she was going to be going all in an effort to help restore her reproductive hormones, reach her natural set point weight, and regulate her hunger and fullness signals. The plan was to allow herself to eat to satiety every single day, no matter how many calories it took. So at first, coming out of a restrictive fitness competitor diet, this looked like around 5,000 calories a day. But as we've really watched her updates and journey over the past few months, her weight gain has slowed and she's finding herself satisfied on closer to maybe 2,000 to 2,500 calories, which I would say would be a totally average amount of calories for an active young woman like Stephanie. Now, while Stephanie's all-in journey stemmed from kind of physiological concerns like her bottomless pit experience and her skewed hormone levels, I have to say that what she is describing to me is really like intuitive eating, just with another name. I'm seeing so many of the principles of intuitive eating in really effortless display throughout her videos that I think she really serves as a fantastic, amazing role model for those of you who maybe want to eat more intuitively, but who are nervous or don't really know what it looks like in real life. So today I want to walk through some of the principles to see intuitive eating in real life action. So principle number 1, she's rejecting the diet mentality.
Know where my headspace is at this time of year. I'm just making sure that I just stay in my own lane. So I'm just doing my own thing. I'm doing and following the journey that I've set out for myself and not revolving around getting shredded and lean and losing weight. So that's where I am right now. I hope that you guys can appreciate that and understand that, and I'm sure you guys do.
Yes. Okay, so I get this is so hard when diet culture is ultimately everywhere, and particularly for a fitness influencer like Stephanie, as dieting and the pursuit of weight loss or physique goals are really a particularly huge part of this world. But I love that Stephanie is explicitly announcing that she is trying to kind of quiet the noise so that she can concentrate on what actually matters to her most, and that is doing what is healthy and best for her and her body. Principle number 2, she honors her hunger.
So I finished that, and I want soup. Minestrone? Minestrone. It's cold outside.
Okay, so this is so simple, but I love that she ate her oatmeal and then she checked in with herself and was like, yeah, I want soup as well. Even if the things don't necessarily go together, cravings and hunger do not discriminate. And I love that she's serving herself up round 2 without any judgment at all. Okay, so principle number 3, she's making peace with food. So if you watch Stephanie's recent videos, you'll see a solid balance of really kind of healthy foods juxtaposed against bites of donuts and pizza. It isn't a video of kind of bodybuilders' diets on day 1 and then a cheat day on day 2 like we used to see a lot of Stephanie's videos show. But you also won't hear her talk about food as being good or bad, it's just food. I can only imagine it has been an ongoing amount of work to truly believe that after operating in the fitness world for so long. But I am really so proud of her for finding that peace. Principle number 4, she challenges the food police. Again, I am sure this journey has not been easy as an influencer, let alone a fitness influencer. And I've seen her mention multiple times on her Instagram that, people frequently call her obese or shame her for perpetuating obesity with her all-in process. I know how hard it is to deal with trolls, especially when you're already doing something that is kind of outside your comfort zone. But I really applaud Stephanie for acknowledging the occasional blip in her confidence, but then just tuning in and really remembering that, hey, this is a process that you're doing for yourself and not to make anyone else happy. Principle number 5, she understands the satisfaction factor.
Normally, when I used to do cheat days, having a bite of 3 donuts would only trigger my appetite more. I would be okay, now they made me more hungry. For me now, of course, my capacity is really high, so I could eat a lot of food. I could eat all 6 of these donuts, but I have no desire to. His mom made us turkey soup last night, and we have leftovers, and that's what I want right now. I'm in the mood to have some turkey soup. Maybe I'll have a little bit more of these later, and that's where I'm at.
Okay, so in this how much do I want to eat video, Stephanie is trying all these delicious looking donuts. Side note, I am also a dulce de leche girl. But she says that in the past, having a bite of something really delicious like a donut would trigger her hunger for more donuts. But now, since going all in, she's realized that she can have her trial bites, enjoy every second of them, and then she would kind of tire of that flavor or that sweetness and move on to what her body was really craving. And that day, it was actually for turkey soup. She also mentioned that she might have more donuts later when maybe, she was more actually hungry for them, or that flavor of sweetness was more satisfying and enjoyable and pleasurable again, which to me is really great. And it's a great example of giving herself unconditional permission to eat. A lot of people find that when they have a binge, let's say on an entire box of donuts, the last few bites are definitely not as satisfying or even delicious as the first few bites when our taste buds are actually primed and excited for them. So I think Stephanie has built enough trust in her body and herself that she knows that she can wait until those bites will be flavorful and delicious and satisfying again, because the food will still be there when that interest comes back. Principle number 6, she honors her fullness, even if something tastes great. Let's take a look.
In the morning, and I usually don't eat my first meal until 11 or 12 o'clock because I just honor my hunger whenever it decides to come around.
Okay, so a lot of people ask me if they're not eating intuitively if they skip breakfast. Now, I have to say, some people are just not breakfast eaters. End of story. And as long as that doesn't prevent you from eating enough in the day, then I don't really see anything unintuitive about pushing back your first meal of the day until you're ready. If you're struggling with hunger cues, however, as we talked about in my Honor Your Hunger video, it may be a really good idea to try to schedule regular meals and snacks even if you're not particularly hungry until that sensitivity really does come back. But it seems to me that now that Stephanie's kind of gone through that process, she absolutely is more in tune with her just natural hunger cues and those rhythms throughout the day. And for her, it just means, hey, maybe she's not that hungry early in the morning.
2 slices of toast and that fruit, I feel pretty full. I'm not gonna lie. I don't have any desire to eat anything more. I could, of course, I could eat more if I force-fed myself, but I have no desire to eat anything else. And I think that just shows how much I've improved and how much my appetite has improved. So it makes me really happy that I can eat a meal like a normal person and not still feel like I could eat the exact plate of food all over again.
So I love how unbelievably happy this progress has obviously made her feel. That is so incredibly encouraging.
It would have been the same thing that I was thinking if it was 8 months ago. Before I went all in and before I ate to satiety every single day, before I gained 40 pounds, I would have easily been able to eat that whole box of cookies. You guys have seen my cheat days. You guys know what I'm capable of. But I think it's kind of a misunderstanding or maybe a miscommunication on my part to explain to you guys why I'm capable of only wanting 1 or even 2 cookies at this point. Now that, I've gained 40 pounds and I've gone through this whole all-in process, just to quickly summarize, the idea is to eat to satiety every day. Then after that, like, your satiety cues and your hunger regulating signals in your body and in your brain kind of tell you to chill out. So after you eat as much as you want every single day, and I've been doing this now for 8 months, I have no desire after I eat one cookie to eat a whole box of cookies. My body is where it's at right now. It's doing really well. Like, this whole process has worked so well for me. I have very normal hunger regulatory signals. If you watched my all-in science video where I explained, leptin and ghrelin and how that kind of is regulated in your brain, especially when you gain weight and you have more body fat on your body kind of tells you that you don't need to put on more body fat. When you're really lean and you're super hungry, it's because your body wants you to put on more body fat. It's going to tell you that you're hungry all the time, even though you just ate. That's just not where I am right now. And I think it took me probably 2 to 3 months of eating a lot of food, up to 5,000 calories a day to get to that point. And since then, I've been slowly getting better and better. So after month 4, I have just been progressing even more. I feel like I need to eat even less every single day to feel satisfied.
Okay, so I think Stephanie does an amazing job explaining how going all in and specifically gaining weight has positively impacted her hunger and fullness cues, largely by regulating leptin and ghrelin. So she talks about when you're super lean, you have less leptin in your body, which that's the hormone that tells you that you're full. So basically, you just never get that fullness signal in an attempt for your body to naturally weight restore. Another important consideration that maybe didn't affect Stephanie so much is that for a lot of people who chronically diet, there's often a huge psychological piece here as well. So when you restrict and then cheat or accidentally eat something that's forbidden, even if you're physically full already, it's hard not to blast through your fullness cues because your brain remembers the horrible restriction that you've put it through in the past and will likely be subjected to again in the future. But when you allow yourself unconditional permission to eat and you put intentional weight loss on the back burner, accepting that, hey, you might even gain weight in this process, you learn to actually trust your body and trust food and trust your access to food. So Stephanie doesn't need to eat the whole box of cookies in one sitting if she's not hungry for them, because she knows that tomorrow she will be hungry again and the cookie will be there. And they'll taste even better because she's actually hungry for those cookies. Principle number 7, she's coping with emotions with kindness, not food. There have been a few super vulnerable moments in Stephanie's videos over the past few months, but I've never gotten the sense that she was dealing with the downs with food. Let's take a look.
Or was really expecting.
I was staying the night at my sister's house, and my mom is there. My sister and I have been spending a lot of time with her because she's been really unwell. And I've never talked about this on my channel before, but I'll say it really briefly. My mom is mentally ill. I don't want to get into all of it, but she's been sick my whole life, and it's a part of why my sister and I take care of her. And I guess I should have been more prepared for her to have an opinion on how I look, not being herself, because this isn't how she normally is. She had a few things to say about my weight gain, and I honestly didn't expect it to bother me. I guess I didn't imagine it would affect me so badly. She's really off right now, and she's kind of in her own world, but it did really bother me, I guess. And the things that she was saying was basically everything that I'm feeling.
And I do want to give myself a little bit of credit. I think I was handling criticism from strangers pretty well. It was just that when it's somebody that's close to you, that made it really hard. And I felt like the best way to deal with it was just to move on. Otherwise, it was just going to consume me.
Honestly, Stephanie, you are so strong. I'm sure so many of my followers are watching this thinking, holy shit, I would crumble. How did you make it through? But I feel like you've really proven to us what an incredible rock star role model you really are. And I'm so appreciative that you've shared your experience so openly with the world. Okay, so principle number 8, she shows her body respect.
In total, I've gained 35 pounds. Interestingly, my weight kind of capped out at the 3-month mark, and it really hasn't changed in the past month and has more or less stabilized. Now, that isn't to say that I won't gain any more weight, because I don't want to be tempted to have feelings of, oh, my weight has plateaued, so now I can't gain any more weight, which could bring me to a dangerous restrictive mindset. So even though it's currently plateaued, it doesn't mean that my weight won't continue to fluctuate.
So I am so amazed and so proud that Stephanie has really made an effort not to have expectations on this process. You know, not to have any strong hope that this is it for the weight gain, or okay, I'm done, I've gained enough.
Really quickly, I know you guys will ask if I'm going to diet, like if there's ever going to be a point where I'm going to diet, and just to really briefly explain it, because I hate saying go watch this video, go watch that video, because I don't think you will, or I don't want to make you do that. So I'm just going to say that I don't need to diet, and I won't, because after I eat less and I continue to eat less, my body is way above its set point. It should go back down to its set point. So there is scientific evidence to support that people have a set point, and my body is above that. So slowly my body should come back down without any need to diet.
Now, while I appreciate that this may not be for everyone, I love that Stephanie has found that all the benefits of this all-in journey and gaining weight far outweighed any future benefits of dieting for her. So clearly staying on this course is really an act of self-love and ultimately body kindness. Principle number 9, she continues to move her body.
Work that I get done. However, on a positive note, I do feel like the goal of building up my strength and making strength improvements was definitely achieved. I felt way more energetic and just better in the gym, like even more than my first month. So everything related to my training and my training recovery only continues to get better the longer I've been all in, which is amazing. However, another challenge I was dealing with that was way more prominent in like the later months than the early months was that the weight gain that I had experienced was becoming a lot more noticeable.
So Stephanie has actually used her all-in journey to optimize her exercise regime and fitness rather than letting her kind of changing body prohibit her from working out. Not surprisingly, when she's not underfeeding, her body can better recover from her workouts, and she can actually see some of those measurable changes to, her strength and energy levels. Now, I don't want anyone watching this to think that you need to work out like Stephanie to be successful at intuitive eating or going all in, but I actually get a strong sense that weight training and exercise is something that brings Stephanie a lot of joy and pleasure, even if it does look pretty intense for those of us who prefer like Pilates or yoga. I personally am also someone who really does love heavy weight training compared to like cardio, for example. And I look at runners like they're crazy for putting their body through what I perceive as hell. But in reality, some people just love to run and do find pleasure in that. So I'm glad that Stephanie has an activity and a source of movement that she really does truly love, and that she can also enjoy it to the fullest now that she's all in without risking exhaustion or injury through underfeeding. And finally, principle number 10, she integrates gentle nutrition and respecting her body really, really well. So as mentioned earlier, I am loving the real food variety I'm seeing on Stephanie's channel since she went all in. Even though she's given herself unconditional permission to eat whatever she wants, whenever she wants, after 9 months, you can see that this largely really is balanced, nourishing meals with some treats peppered in. No more full-on cheat meals needed.
GG omelet, so it has caramelized onions, mushrooms, and a lot of goat cheese. Oh yeah, it has spinach too.
So this breakfast at Cora's, for example, looks really satisfying, balanced, and super tasty. She's got protein and fat in her omelet, some carbs in her toast and fruit. I mean, this is an awesome meal and totally something that I would order while out myself.
I decided to use vegan protein. So I'm doing a vegan dish, oatmeal, vegan protein, the vanilla, but I added cinnamon and pumpkin pie spice. So it's like banana fostery because I have bananas in it, so it's really good.
Okay, so ditto with these post-workout protein oats. So Stephanie definitely knows what helps her recover from her workouts best. And this meal has the perfect post-workout combination of protein and carbs. It's also super nutritious, but obviously something she truly loves. I mean, she has it all the time and she always is talking about how delicious it is. And it really does look good.
We got pizza. I got the veggie pizza with chicken. I didn't realize that they put an entire tomato on top, but probably eat that first.
Okay, so even her personalized pizza looks super balanced and delicious. We've got chicken for protein and tons of veggies piled on. And she also doesn't leave out dessert. I mean, she still enjoys some vegan lemon ice cream and a chocolate cookie without feeling the need to necessarily eat the entire box. All of these meals are selected and chosen because they feel good to her. They're truly just what she finds enjoyable and satisfying. And there is no, I'm being good or this is the healthy choice or whatever. Stephanie appreciates that they're just really tasty and this is what her body is craving. And I just think that really reinforces how far she's come on this journey. So now that I've given you my 2 cents, I want to loop in Stephanie Buttermore herself to tell you about her unique experience. So Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
Oh, thank you. So I think you do a really great job at answering a lot of the big questions that everybody has on your channel. So I want to ask you a few that I had myself. First of all being, how has your interest in cravings in sweet foods changed since going all in?
That's a really good question because so much has actually changed. And I'd like to think that I had a good understanding of what cravings and what interest in food was prior to going all in, but I don't think that I did. So just to kind of quickly define, when I was super lean, there was no such thing as like interest in cravings because you just want everything. It's like broccoli looks good to you.
Yeah.
So these words had different meanings to me at that point in my life. And I think that they take on an entirely new meaning now. And I think that for the most part, you'd also have to kind of delineate between 1 month all in Stephanie and like 9 months all in Stephanie too, because even fully like 1 month in, things like craving or like my, obsession with sweets would kind of like, it did decrease like a bit after 1 month, but now 9 months in, it's like completely transformed. So now 9 months in, if you were to think of my cravings or interest, I would, say that they are pretty normal. I still have a love for sweets. I'm sure most people do, and I just think that now it's just my cravings and interests are much more normalized. Where before, to satisfy or the cravings that I would have would be on like a much larger scale. It'd be like I'd walk into a donut shop and feel the need, like I could eat the whole shop. And now I feel like, like I would love to try one, or I would love to try two, or something like that. Or after dinner, like a normal person, I would crave something sweet, and it would be, instead of an entire box of Oreos, I would just want one. So I do have them. So the short answer is absolutely it's changed. And now I have like a true understanding of what those words actually mean.
I think that's so fascinating, and I think is really going to resonate with a lot of my viewers who are really trying to embark on a similar journey and find that satisfaction with not needing to kind of go overboard and binge and then feel sick afterwards. So I think that that's really amazing to hear. And yes, to some people, like 9 months might seem like a long time, but in the context of your life, like how amazing is that you've completely transformed your whole life in really just a few short months. So kudos.
Yeah, honestly, 9 months, it feels a long time because like I've had to think about it because I've documented it. So, but like it has flown by. Like I'm gonna be honest, it has absolutely flown by.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, in one video, you mentioned how your body is above its set point and that you think it's going to come down. So I'm curious why you believe or how you know that it's your weight's going to come down, that it's not at its natural set point at this moment.
So if you were to have asked me before I went all in, I would have, like most people, thought that like if you eat indefinitely at like high calories, you would just eat yourself into obesity. So you have to first, to understand where my thinking is, you have to first like kind of throw that idea out the window because it's not true. And it's shown in many studies that it's just not true. So there are two different reasons I think that
I believe that this phenomenon kind of happens. So the first is just scientific evidence, and the second is more like what I feel in physiological behaviors. But the first being like, if you have, so let's first just kind of like explain what like set point is, because some people like don't, like they ask me all the time, like, what do you mean by set point? Or like, so that's kind of how it's described in, say, like literature. They usually use the word like natural weight. And there is a theory that most humans genetically have a predisposition to be a certain body fatness. And they like, their body genetically hovers around a certain weight. And there's a lot of banter in the scientific community because you have to also incorporate environmental factors. So there's also a dual intervention model, but a lot of people really discuss the set point theory model and how your body kind of regulates body fatness, kind of like a thermostat. So the way that it's generally described is like, you know, you were born a certain way and your physiology is a certain way based off of your ancestry as well, like your background, the way that you store body fatness, because somebody from up north is going to store body fatness very differently from somebody from South Africa. And so all those things are inter-individual based on your background, but your body likes to sit in a range. I wouldn't say an exact weight, and this range fluctuates throughout your life. So this is a very fluid range. So I'm actually pretty lucky because I actually have a good idea and a good understanding of what my natural weight is, or my natural set weight is, because I didn't start dieting at a young age, and a lot of people did, so they really have no idea what their natural weight is. Many people, because of pressures, maybe they did figure skating or dancing when they were younger, they were, you know, kind of pressured to be at a smaller body. And I actually played sports, and I played softball. I was small, so they encouraged me to be bigger, and I was just, I was always just an athlete that never felt the need to diet. And the first time I really got into dieting was when I was like 24. So up until like 60, like after like I hit puberty and like went through all those changes, and my body kind of hung around a certain weight, and like kind of like I would like say percent body fat, not really weight, percent body fat, up until I was like 24, where I decided to do a bikini competition, and that's when everything changed. So I'd like to imagine that that is kind of where my natural set weight is. Now I'm going to be 30 this month, so obviously time has gone by, and at this place in my life, I don't think that I would go necessarily to that weight, but that was just a good, that's kind of like a ballpark of where I think it is, and it's where it feels happy and where I don't feel kind of how I do right now, where I do feel a little bit uncomfortable, and it's kind of difficult to describe, so I'll use a few examples. The way my body feels right now is uncomfortable because I'm always like so uncomfortably hot all the time. So these are like kind of physiological signals to me that my body is kind of like, after it's hit its peak, I have come down from my peak weight, which by the way, I sat at my peak weight for like a good 4 months. Like it did not move for 4 months, and at the highest weight that I got to. It's only just recently started to very slowly come down, and I can tell that I don't think my body is quite done, because I'm still way above that like hypothetical natural set weight I have. But like aside from being really hot, where I'll sit anywhere and I'll just be sweating through my pants, it's just crazy all the time. I also feel like my appetite is just, it's just like so low to the point where sometimes I like make myself eat because I like don't want, you know, my metabolism to be affected by my lack of like my appetite right now. But it's very low. Like I can barely eat before noon sometimes. Sometimes when I eat, I feel a little bit nauseous. So I feel like my body is like, okay, you were at a high enough body fat for a while, and now like everything is functioning normally again, and maybe it does feel a little bit uncomfortable. And this is like a mental thing that I have, but in terms of feeling a little bit uncomfortable. But I think that my frame doesn't support this body weight either, because I find that I walk very funny now, and because my legs are really big, and I find that my gait is just strange and awkward. That could just be like in my own head, but that's another thing that I've noticed, and I think that my frame doesn't really support this high of a body fat percentage. So that's purely anecdotal, but there is obviously, like I mentioned before with the set weight model theory, there is scientific evidence that like in overfeeding studies that yes, the participants will gain above their pre overfeeding weight. but they almost always come back down. Sometimes it takes longer in some participants than others. Same thing happens when you underfeed participants. The same thing happens when they go back to ad libitum eating. They kind of swing back up. They have this overshoot period, and then slowly but surely, if they eat ad libitum, it comes back down.
So interesting, and I love. I mean, as a science-minded person, I really truly appreciate you kind of bringing that science mind to your journey and sharing that with your audience. So that's very interesting and so insightful as well. So. Okay, so next question. This is something I'm fascinated by, again, science geek. But you showed us your blood panel back in the fall, and I know that you weren't satisfied that your numbers were exactly where you wanted them, I guess, in the long term. But have you had your estradiol and FSH and your LH retested since the fall?
So that's a great question. Really interesting that I actually just booked an appointment to have my blood work done on Monday. We're recording this on a Friday because I have an update video coming up, and I really do want to, after a good almost 10 months at that point, know where I stand. And I know that in my video that I seem to be very disappointed, and I was at the time of the recording of that video. But I actually had Dr. Nicola Rinaldi. We chat very regularly, like all the time. But right after that video was recorded, that was after my 4-month update. She actually gave me a lot of she really, really made me feel so much better, because she actually mentioned to me that those numbers were really promising and that I shouldn't feel discouraged by those numbers at all. She said that they were pretty normal. They could be better, but they were actually pretty much in the normal range, and that these things take time, and that after that, at that time, it was only 4 months, that I shouldn't feel discouraged by any means, because it was really promising. So her just giving me that reassurance made me feel so much better. And one thing that I'd like to kind of make note of to your audience, this might be long-winded, but I think it's an important thing to mention, that if women are at all considering getting blood work because they want to monitor maybe these things, things seem a little bit low or seem off, make sure that if you have a normal menstrual cycle, and I can't say this to speak people who have amenorrhea at the moment, but if you are undergoing a normal menstrual cycle, you need to get your blood work done in the same phase that you had it done if you're comparing numbers, because your numbers just change so drastically between your follicular and luteal phase. After you hit ovulation, your estradiol plummets. So in peaks, plummets. Same with FSH and LH. They increase and decrease throughout different times of your menstrual cycle. So if you were to compare two different numbers that were taken at different times of your menstrual cycle, they could be extremely misleading or discouraging or encouraging, wrongly encouraging, all of those things. So if you are considering taking any measurements and having these things tested, just keep those things in mind.
Yeah, thank you for flagging that, because I think that could totally throw people off. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, going back to your original blood numbers, I remember seeing that video and thinking, those look really great to me. If that were me, I would probably be so excited. So I'm really happy that you've had a chance to kind of think, maybe that is a really great sign and things are moving in the right direction. Because I was personally really encouraged seeing that. And another thing I wanted to mention was that for people who are experiencing amenorrhea, if you are getting these blood levels tested, because that was a big question for me. It's I myself have amenorrhea from post-pill PCOS, and that's why I've struggled with infertility. And I remember asking my nurse, how do I interpret my baseline blood levels? Because I don't have a follicular cycle, phase. I don't have an ovulatory phase. I don't know where I am in this point, because there is no day that this was taken on in my cycle. And I think always run this by your own team, your own nursing team and doctor. But my nurse told me that they analyze amenorrhea results based on the follicular phase of the cycle. So just for those of you who are out there who don't really necessarily have a regular cycle, that might be something to consider as well. Cool.
That's really interesting. That's really good to know.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so another question, but one thing I was thinking about when I was thinking about your all-in journey is that essentially what you're describing as going all in, to me is almost like jumping full force into intuitive eating, which is something we talk a lot about on my channel. You were like under eating when you started this whole journey, so it does make absolute sense to me that your weight would increase, at least at the beginning, when you kind of go all in and you start eating more intuitively and eating to full satiety, as you describe. But what do you say to some of your larger body followers who want to regulate their hunger and find their natural set point, but who are worried that going all in will cause them to kind of spiral further out of control with their weight and food in general?
Yeah, so I would personally say that going all in is completely irregardless of your starting body weight. And that's why everybody's journey will look very different. And I know that they're probably more reluctant to kind of undergo this kind of process because they're scared of gaining weight. And this is kind of why maybe they've had a lot of other issues maybe going on, and their self-esteem and like their body image is going to be probably even more negatively affected. And that's maybe why they've gone through maybe like the vicious cycle of diet restriction and maybe binging and restriction, and they've ended up maybe in this larger body, or they could even have like PCOS. And there's a lot of things in this. So one thing is that you really have to consider that this is temporary. So I know that it is difficult. Like, I'm not gonna, I gained 40 pounds, and that's nothing to laugh at because it is quite a bit of weight. And I because I started out so lean, it may not seem like I am super heavy now, but it is a lot of weight. And if that gives people who are already starting out a little bit larger a lot of fear that they're going to gain like 40 pounds plus because everyone's journey looks different. I think that the reassurance that they're not going to spiral out of control is really evident in like the literature and in what happens when people that are lean go all in. Your appetite and spiraling out of control really doesn't happen because your appetite does regulate that. And when you don't restrict even if at a larger body, even though because you have a larger body, you inherently have a higher metabolism. If you calorically restrict, your metabolism probably has decreased a lot. So you can have a heavier body weight and have a low metabolism due to calorie restriction. So you need to keep in mind that this process, yes, you'll gain weight, but you'll be fixing all of those things. Because like in the short term, like I've had to say to myself, I had to remember that I have so much life left to live. Like, I'm not 80 years old and I'm worried about this right now. It's like, do I want to deal with this forever? Do I want to feel hungry all the time forever? And I think that even if you are heavier, you're still human. This process works the same way. It's just that your journey is going to look a little bit different, and that you're just going to have to, like everybody does, you have to accept the weight gain, because what happens sometimes when you start gaining weight, you get a little bit scared, and then you like restrict a little here, restrict a little there, and the old tendencies might start to come back. And you have to, if you do that, you will undo everything you've done. It'll have wasted all the work that you have done. And so if you fully like dive straight into eating to whatever you want, whenever you want, whatever time of day that it is, and you will gain weight and you know it, you're like, okay, I know that I'm going to gain weight. Like, it's not going to be a surprise. Like, oh, surprise, you gain weight. You will, but it doesn't last forever. And the more you go completely all in, I feel the shorter it takes. Because if you slowly dabble into it, it'll just prolong the whole process and it'll just take forever. That's what really pushed me to like really not restrict at all, like no restrictions, because I just knew that it was just going to prolong this, and I just don't want to do this forever.
Right. Yeah, that's so interesting and absolutely true. Like you said, this is what the research shows us. And the interesting thing is, for a lot of people who maybe are in a larger body, who have spent their whole lives kind of dieting and binging and restricting and kind of going up and down like that yo-yo dieting and weight cycling is inherently really bad for your health. So if you're able to stabilize your weight, even if that means you're still in a larger body, that is a really healthy place to be, especially in comparison to to kind of going up and going down and really kind of damaging your metabolism in the process. So I think there are just so many benefits regardless of the size of your body to begin with. This is not just, like you said, for inherently like really lean women who have really dieted down to very small sizes. So this is a process that can ultimately help everyone repair their relationship with food and do it relatively quickly. I mean, it's quite amazing the transformation that we've seen happen here. So thank you for sharing that journey. That's so interesting. And for those out there who may be chronically under-eating or dieting, regardless of their size and shape, do you have any mantras or words of encouragement that really helped you push through some of that kind of fear to just like jump in and change your diet so drastically when really you had no idea how your body was going to change?
Yeah, so I would consider this in two different camps. So the first camp would be for a mantra for women who have not yet done this, who are thinking about it, who feel like they need to. They're like, I'm so hungry, I feel so tired, I lost my period, maybe your hair is falling out, maybe you're just so cold all the time, many different things, or even some of those things. They feel like this might be what they need to do to to normalize their hunger again and to find their natural set weight. And for those people who haven't yet done it because they're too scared, it's kind of the same idea that I was thinking of for the larger bodied women. This is temporary, and you have to remember that this is temporary. And if you can, like, my only wish in the world when I started was that I could fix my hunger. I didn't know how long it was going to take, but it was so bad, and I felt hungry so, like, all the time, that it made life so miserable that if I knew that I could fix it, I would do it. And I thought that to myself, like, gaining weight is something that many people fear. It's very obvious. I mean, it's the reason why people have, developed eating disorders in the first place. But if you can make this really, like, this promise to yourself, knowing that this is going to actually fix it, it's not like it might, it actually will if you do it right. Maybe something would be a good idea, maybe to hire somebody who specializes in this. And it's only temporary, and it's a temporary thing, and you, throughout the process and after the process, you won't be hungry anymore. To me, that was the biggest draw. To other people, they might have other things on their mind, but to me, it was just to not feel so hungry all the time, to not go to bed hungry. I know that you have talked about your struggles with insomnia. You cannot sleep when you're hungry. It is the worst feeling in the world. Even if you used to sleep just fine before you dieted and were lean, your sleep is likely not the best because you just feel hungry and you wake up hungry, and it can be fixed by something that is temporary, and there aren't that many repercussions. The weight gain is temporary, it's not forever. You might have to accept buying some larger clothes, like thrifting larger clothes, accepting that you may not be as lean as you once were, but you're not going to be hungry anymore, and you're not going to feel tired anymore, or you're going to improve the relationship with your partner because you're not as frustrated. You don't watch your partner and envy while he eats a steak and you can't. And that is really, that makes you almost mad at them. They didn't do anything to you, and you're mad at them for no reason. So that's like the first camp of women that I kind of wanted to say that to. But the second camp of women I kind of want to reach out to is for a mantra. Is for women who have decided to undergo this journey. Maybe if they're at the beginning, at the middle, even towards the end, and they've gained weight and they're uncomfortable and they want to quit. Like they feel tendencies of maybe restriction coming back. And the thing that because I journal very regularly, and I've journaled I journaled twice a day at the beginning, because I would journal in the morning how I was feeling, and at night. I was very religious with it every single day, and the one thing that I made sure to remind myself every time I had like these moments of doubt was that I needed to remember my why. And I made my why extremely clear at the beginning. I wrote them down over and over. I said them over and over in videos. I said them over and over to people who just didn't get it, like my parents didn't get it. Like, I've said them over and over. So I knew exactly what my why was. So all I had to say to myself was, don't forget why you're doing this. Like, remember your why, remember your why. And it would just be something simple that I would repeat to myself, like the moment that I would, like, do you stay in your own lane and remember your why. And that's what really kept me in it. And I think that, it doesn't really matter if you're in the public eye, in my opinion, or not, because people can be just as harsh in person. Your family, your friends, your coworkers, they're going to be just as harsh. So I was in a unique position that I was in the public eye, but I don't think it's any easier for women that are not in public at all. And I think it's sometimes even harder because those relationships are very intimate and you're hearing these harsh words from people that you're very close to. For me, like for people that I don't even know, I can brush those people off. But like for other people, when it's their family or their friends that they just don't get why you've gained so much weight and things like that, that's where it can be really difficult. So you have to remember your why. And if people really love and support you, they will understand your why with you.
Yeah, that is so powerful, and I think that alone will help so many people. And I like the idea of journaling too, because that may just help you reconnect with that why when you're starting to doubt yourself, or those feelings or thoughts or behaviors are starting to creep back in. Okay, so finally, last question. You mentioned that you maybe want to write a book about your all-in journey. I would love to know what the punchline is, of course. What are the most important things that you got out or are getting out of the all-in journey that you ultimately want the world to know?
I do want the message of the book to kind of be a form of like self-discovery in a way, because everything that I did, like everything that my whole life, my career, what I was doing on YouTube, revolved around the way that I looked. And prior to doing YouTube, it had nothing to do with the way that I looked. I used to be a scientist in the lab, and the way that I looked was completely irrelevant. And then I jumped headfirst into a world where the way that I looked and the way that my body was all that mattered, basically. And it was all that gained me credibility or notoriety or trust from people. They're like, oh, if she looks like that, then I can trust her, even though the information could be exactly the same. Right. So I wanted it to be about what I did in moments and how I like discovered what is important to me. Because at the beginning, you know, all these things are important to you and you have certain beliefs, and they change so much through experiences quite like this one. And I wanted to show like the evolution of my thoughts and my process and my confidence, because my confidence wasn't even great when I was lean, because I was making content to be lean because it seemed to do better when I was lean, so it like perpetuated like staying lean, and it was this vicious cycle, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I didn't even like the way I looked. My arms were so skinny that I didn't want to wear tank tops. Like it was bad. Like I didn't even feel that great about the way, like my body image wasn't even great. And in clothing, I just looked like I was too small of a human to fit adult clothing. Yeah, like I didn't even really love how I looked then. And so gaining weight, although I've had my ups and downs, I did start to love myself and my body a lot more, and then became so much less focused on my body because I was like, you know, kind of thinking of other things and work. And I didn't want this book to be at all prescriptive. Like people have asked me, I even talked to a publisher and they wanted it to be, they're like, this could be great as a how-to. And I didn't want to do that because that's not my MO. I'm not trying to tell people what to do. I just want to share my journey because they can learn from experts and from themselves, like how they would want to approach life if they were in a similar scenario. And I think sharing my experiences in really difficult times and sharing what I was thinking in these moments, like of hardship or like feeling really bad about myself, like how I just dealt with it would just be really, you know, like relatable in a way, and also just it could possibly help people who are going through something similar, and any kind of recovery journey that they're undergoing, although might looking different than mine, they could still take away from what I learned throughout the process. And even as I write the book, I'm still not going to be done. So I will be still self-discovering as I finish and as I go through. And I started with my background and how I got to where I was. So as I keep writing the book and I keep, you know, like my journey keeps on going, I'll be able to talk on more current things. But that's kind of what it is. It's kind of like a self-discovery journey.
I love that. And I love to hear, you know, of course, all those physical issues that you were dealing with have resolved and are getting better every single day. And that is fantastic. But just to hear that even just your love of your body and just the respect that you have grown for your body has improved is so powerful and so helpful for women specifically, but really for anyone who is struggling in their relationship with their body and food. And because we live in such, diet culture, this is an issue that really affects anyone, regardless of what their body looks like. So these are lessons that I think we can all learn from. And so thank you so much for sharing your journey. I mean, I can't tell you how inspiring this whole thing has been. I can't wait to follow along and to get the book when that comes to fruition. But guys, if you're not already following Stephanie, I highly suggest that you do. And so we're going to, of course, leave lots of links in the description so that you can hit her up. And Stephanie, you got to let me know when you're coming to Toronto, because I got all the best donut shops. I know them all. I'm also a donut fiend.
The first person I'm gonna call, I might actually be there in March. So
oh man!
Don't be shocked.
Oh yeah.
I might come right after the Arnold. So
love it.
Shocked if you end up hearing from me.
Please do, because yeah, I think we have a donut date in our future.
I'm in totally, 100%.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Stephanie. And if you guys like this video, don't forget to give me the thumbs up. Leave me a comment below if you have any questions about intuitive eating, all in. Maybe Stephanie will pop by, and if there's any questions specific to her, she can answer them as well. But also don't forget to hit up her channel. She's got so much information about this whole journey that I'm sure you will all find really enlightening. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye.